Trading has closed on June 30th, 2023. As always, we'll start with our disclaimer, go over our predictions, and then make some calls. I'm going to be busy tomorrow and the better part of next week. I'm going to do as good a job as I can, but I'm just not having as much time as I normally have to analyze things. And remember, my calls can be wrong, and any trade you make should be made at your own risk. Today's pattern was the one with the early high, which is what we got. And on Monday, which is a stub day, half session, I think we'll also get the early high. I was looking for a low this week with a rally next week, but I said yesterday that this trade didn't really fit. That if we took these lows out early, I was willing to look the other way. And if we dropped, I had some targets. But I said if we kept going higher, I didn't really have a plan for today. And here's what we said: no plan. These are the patterns I think we'll see next week. We get to cross a target off the list, 44.31.64. We had a target from today of 44.49.47. In the last 5 minutes of trading, we came close enough to this to satisfy it. It doesn't have to print. It's optional. But optional or not, almost always is going to print anyway, and that's going to be my call for Monday. Now, when you look at this, it's kind of an amazing thing. We gap up, rally all day long, all the way up here, MEJT, while we're rallying on a Friday when it's hard to reverse things. Says this is not going to stick, and that we're going to trade at 44.49.47. And with 5 minutes left to trade, we're hitting new highs on a Friday. I mean, that just shouldn't reverse. If that's the real thing, we should keep going. If anything, there should be a wall higher into the close. Instead, there's a wall of selling, undercutting not only all these highs, but also all these lows, meaning the last few hours didn't accomplish anything. Now, I don't know how we'll open Monday. If we open up here, I'm going to forget about this, but to me, that's negative action. And what's really negative is I can count this as an ending diagonal triangle. Now, I'll grant you it's not the only count. It works. But I think it's a plausible count, and if it's the right count, we're going to drop right from the open. Of course, we don't know that until Monday. But I think stalling here, hitting a new high and promptly reversing is a rejection of all these highs. Again, provided it's maintained. We open up here, forget the whole idea. But we could open down and possibly down hard on Monday. This is DeMark's sequential on the monthly chart. This is a pattern that started way back over 3 years ago. We completed bar 13. Now, this isn't accurate enough to base a trade just on completing his pattern. For one thing, it's a monthly chart, and this stop loss is based on the month's close. So if we keep going up here, you're not going to be stopped out until July 31st. No one's going to sit through a rally that long. But even though this isn't as accurate as I like some other stuff to be, it is a sell signal by his work, and the longer the duration of the bars, the more valid his signals are. Now, I think we're going higher, but it doesn't mean we go higher on Monday. Take a look at these trend lines. This is a trend line we've shown any number of times. Then you've got this trend line with some great hits. Then you've got this trend line we rallied up to, but not through, a confluence of 3 trend lines. That's very strong resistance. And I don't like the fact that we rallied to resistance in a straight line without going through it. So either you gap over this trend line or the trend line wins. If we don't gap up Monday, and I'm not saying we won't, but if we don't, that can lead to a pullback of some size. Now this is the count I've been using. I was waiting for an ABC. It doesn't look as though that's going to play out, but even though it isn't my preferred count, and I've said it's not the only valid count, we have to find some other count. Well, this is what I came up with. We still have wave 1 and wave 2. Wave 1 and 2 are the same, but you could count this as wave 3. Gold 3 of red 1, of black 3. That's 4. And if this is 5, and this is 1, these things are equal. So it's at least possible to count this as the end of wave red 1, a black 3, as a complete 5-wave pattern. And don't forget, wave 2 can correct the lion's share of wave 1, which could put us all the way back down here. That low was in the low 4100s. I don't think we're going to go that low, but we could drop over 300 points and not kill the count and not kill the idea. Doesn't mean it's the right count, but can't be certain it's wrong. There's a lot going for it right here. I think this late drop is not good. Well, Monday's pattern has the early high. We could gap down. The pattern typically rallies into the close. Failure is a straight line drop. Monday closes early, and sometimes we go nowhere, and the pattern doesn't have sufficient time to play out fully. So I don't know how much you can rely on the normal patterns. There's an optional target slightly lower than the Friday close, and being optional, it doesn't have to print, but it almost always will. And if it does, it gives credence to the rejection of the break to new highs at a time when the rejection is very difficult, very hard to accomplish. Friday's rally stopped at a confluence point of trend line and at a point where one can count a complete 5-wave pattern. We gapped up at a higher high but closed under midday highs. Unless we gap and promptly overtake the high of day, we should see lower prices Monday, regardless of how we close. Now, I'm quite reluctant to call a short-term top as we enter one of the most consistently bullish weeks of the year. But that doesn't mean you go up every year. And if we open significantly lower Monday, I think it could lead to a tradable decline in a wave 2 of a larger degree, wave 3. Now don't forget, we gap up over this, all bets are off. But I think that could be an ending diagonal triangle. I think we stop right at resistance and reversed. And if we open down, I think we could have a very tradable drop here, 4th of July week or not. And that's today's call.